having money cannot always win you an election.
True.
I think in Ghana, that has become clear. And CDD Ghana did a survey, and about 65% of the respondents said they will take your money, but when they get into the booth, it will not have any effect on them.
There are competent women all across this country, across this sub-region, across this continent, who, if they are in leadership position, are going to transform our system so much. We need to not give them this opportunity. They will run and they will win, whether we like it or not. Let's not say we're giving them, because it's not on a platter of gold. But the time will come, so better accept it now.
This season of the Unamplified podcast is sponsored by the GIZ African Union Aware Project. A project aims to strengthen women's representation and participation in political processes.
The saying, money makes the world go round, is a popular one. And in our pidgin language, we say, good soup, na money killer. So money is important. And when we talk about leadership, about competition for leadership position, money always has a way of either defining it, influencing it, or keeping some people out. So today we're talking the money game. Hello, Africa. Welcome to the Unamplified podcast. My name is Cynthia Mbamalu, your host. And with me today, I have my co-host.
Hi, everyone. My name is Queen CY, and welcome to the Unamplified podcast.
Yes, we'll be discussing the money game. You know me, I like money.
Who doesn't like money?
So I only like when I'm talking money talk, I used to be excited. I feel like I'm putting it out in the universe, telling God that your daughter likes money, so make it come to her. But we're talking on money when it comes to competition. And we have a powerhouse from Ghana joining us today, and our guest in the studio. So I'll leave it to Queen CY to introduce our guest.
We are so honored to have Ibrahim Farouk. He's the Program Coordinator, African Division, Yaga Africa, and also Mr. Peter Mark Manu of the New Patriotic Party, Ghana. Welcome to the Unamplified podcast, Mr. Peter and Mr. Ibrahim Farouk.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome.
Thank you from Accra.
You're welcome.
Yes, thank you so much. I'm glad we have someone from Ghana and especially a seasoned politician. I've known Mr. Peter for the longest time now, beyond just being active in the politics of Ghana, but he's also been engaging in the leadership within Ghana and within this West African sub-region. And so I'm really pleased we have him today to discuss this very important topic. And Ibrahim Farouk, I call him Ibrahim of Africa, because this one too has waka. You moved around a lot. And so we're talking about money, and this is a general question to both Mr. Peter and Ibrahim. And I think the first question, honestly, is it realistic? Can we say it's realistic to separate money from politics? Is it possible to separate money from politics? And when we think about that, and how do we talk about leadership without looking at money as a tool that closes up the space for women, young people, and even persons with disability? I'll begin with Ibrahim and I'll get to Mr. Peter.
Thank you so much, Cynthia and Queen CY. It's so good to be back on the Unamplified podcast.
Yes, welcome back
for season 3. But to get right into the conversation around the money game, I do not think it is realistic to separate money and politics. I think everywhere across the world, money and politics go hand in hand. However, there needs to be regulation to ensure that money is not the single determinant factor when it comes to political outcomes. If that was the case, I think that instead of us having elections, candidates should just show us their bank account balance, and whoever has the biggest bank account balance should win the election. Because if money is the sole determinant of who gets into elective office, then it becomes a problem, because when some people get into office, there's that temptation that you want to recoup what you have seen as an investment or the amount of money that you have spent. But if we're able to regulate how much money is used in determining these political outcomes, ensure that there's as much as possible a level playing field, then it reduces how much money determines who wins an election at the end of the day.
Yeah, Mr. Peter, because you also have experience, is it realistic?
Yes.
Can we separate money from politics, and how can we regulate money in politics to ensure fair competition?
I have always said that in democracy, first, you need the human being. But when you put the human being aside, there are two major things that you need, and that is money and time. So money is an essential component of any democracy. And in competing in general elections, it costs money. And election campaigns are becoming more expensive in Ghana. And later on, we will look at how women can be supported to meander through the difficulties of raising money, because you need money as an essential component. Because for us in Ghana, and in my party in particular, we always look at three things: people, money, and time as the key things that you need to prosecute a good campaign, and for that matter, to sustain our democracy.
Wow. People, money, and time as a good thing that we need. What do you think, Mr. Why can we separate money and politics?
It's not possible. It's just like saying that, can you stay without eating? So you can never separate money from politics, because just like as Ibrahim said that we need it, but we have to still regulate it. And also have to have some kind of accountability to reduce some of the negative influences that comes with it. I mean, can we go, just as I said, can we go to campaign without money? Media appearances and all others. We cannot do it without money. So I don't think you can separate them.
You know, when you say that, I laughed. I remember one time our priest said, yes, the church needs prayers, but the church cannot run on 3 Hail Marys.
Yeah.
We need money. And so I guess that is Quincy, over to you.
Okay, Mr. Peter, I have a question for you. You have been a national chairman of the MPP, a senior strategist and campaign manager in Ghanaian politics. Can you walk us through the financial architecture of running a competitive campaign today in Ghana?
The campaign begins with what we normally call pre-election campaign. Then you come to the election campaign itself, and then post-election campaign. And all these three areas or phases require money. In pre-election campaign, you have to look at issues that you have to deal with before the election itself. For example, there are voter registration. And if you intend to contest in a constituency, it is your duty, you have an obligation to mobilize your members, your base, to have them on the voters' roll to register. And it costs money, because sometimes some people have to travel to the nearest registration centers. And it takes hours and days, and you have to feed them whilst they are waiting. So there are issues of money, even pre-election, before you come to election. An election, we have internal elections, primaries, nomination fees, and we have the general election itself, which the Electoral Commission or INEC conducts. But all these two areas, both internal primaries and the general elections, it costs money, because you need money to pay for nomination fees for the internal elections and the party. You need money to establish campaign office. You need money to recruit staff. And for women in particular, you need money to arrange security whilst you are undertaking the campaign trails. It is critical, because in Ghana, some campaign late in the night, and you need adequate protection as a woman, so that you are able to go through the hassles, the campaigns, without any fear or threat of being mobbed. So you engage canvassers, you use your phone to make phone calls. Who pays for the bills? the text messaging, the billboards, the press conferences and the press events, and you engage volunteers and canvassers, who is going to pay for their meal? They may not charge you, but you have to feed them. So money, as it has emerged on this platform, is a critical factor in democracy and elections. And in our jurisdiction, we look at it in that perspective and look at how we can raise the money within the ambit of the law, because there is a Political Parties Act which also governs how parties can raise money. That's right. It is critical that we, as women, you avail yourself of the laws governing fundraising. For example, foreigners cannot contribute to campaign funding of any candidate, be he a woman or man. So you should be able to understand what the law says regarding fundraising, so that you are not in conflict with the law. Raise the funds, the individual candidate raises funds, the party itself raises funds through membership dues, through donations, and through various fundraising events. And the party then can support various candidates, including women. In fact, in our party, the internal primaries nomination fees, we give 50% rebate or discount to women to encourage them. Women and people with disability are giving 50% rebate. But in the last general election, the Electoral Commission proposed 25% rebate for women. But the law governing Ghana's general elections is that you pay the nomination, but if you get certain amount of votes, it is refunded to you.
Oh.
Yeah, it's not completely lost. If you get a certain amount of votes, your entire deposit or nomination fees are paid back to you. So this is the arena of how we operate in Ghana.
Wow, thank you so much, Mr. Peter. I think that's an interesting perspective, and because we don't have a similar requirement here, because I think in Nigeria, the nomination forms and cost, it goes to the political party.
Yeah.
So political parties are the ones that determine or give the cost for expression of interest and nomination. The Electoral Commission is not even part of that conversation, which is why different parties have different cost of nomination. And just listening to Mr. Peter talk, he broke down from the pre-elections phase, in fact, the things you need money for. If there's voter registration going on, you need money to mobilize your people to go and register, Abi. And so you can imagine that if you make up your mind to contest, you start spending from the pre-elections phase. And I was just thinking around how young women and young men navigate this. So, Ibrahim, you were part of the Not Too Young to Run movement. You're one of the leaders of the movement, and you've so far worked or managed the book series, the Beating the Odds book series, which documents experiences of young people who contest, and even those who contest win or do not win elections. So from just the stories from 2019 till date, how have, for the young people you've interacted with and those who share their stories, how did they navigate the funding challenge? And then is there a way, or is there a difference with how the young women experience the funding challenge than the men? Is there a difference if you think about it gender-wise?
Thank you so much. That just felt like children and their grandchildren. So many questions stacked upon one another. But like you've said, over the past almost 10 years, we have been documenting the experiences of young people who are running for office in Nigeria. I think if there is one thing that stood out for me that young people have done differently is how over the past 10 years, they've been able to use digital tools as a way of campaigning, and reaching out to the electorate within their different constituencies. When you analyze the cost of politics, a huge chunk of campaign finances goes into media and campaigning, press conferences, television jingles or political party adverts. It's a huge expense. But I think technology has provided a bit of an alternative that reduces that cost for young people. And we've seen young people who have announced their intention to run for office on Facebook, for instance, or on a Facebook Live. That just reduces the cost of having to go to a major television station and having to pay millions of naira just to announce that you're running for office. So that is one way that we have seen young people trying to navigate that. We've also seen how young people have attempted running on the platforms of other political parties. And I'm being careful with how I describe these parties. Just like in Ghana, we have two major political parties. In Nigeria, we have two major parties, or three or four, depending on which election, general election you look at it. But we've seen young people who are confident in their ability and say, in my constituency, and this happens more when you're running for more local elections, such as the State House of Assembly, which is a subnational parliamentary election, to say, I am popular enough in this constituency to run on the platform of a political party that is not as popular as the big ones we have, because we do not have independent candidacy. So you must run on that platform. And I'm sure when we talk about reforms later, we might consider independent candidacy as a means of reducing how much money goes into running for office for young people. But the question around how young women have navigated this challenge, I think it is 4 or 5 or 6 or 10 times more difficult for young women to raise money for an electoral campaign than it is even for young men, because many of our patriarchal or cultural norms kind of sideline women and young women especially to say, what are you looking for in politics? Why are you running for office? Why do you want to be my leader? Why should I be calling you honorable? And even if you go to fundraise, for many individuals that you speak to, there's already a mental cultural block in their minds that they are trying to get over. But we see how young men are able to mobilize resources from their peers, from within the political party, from their godfathers, from supporters, sometimes even crowdfunding online. And so maybe just to say, for every young woman out there who has run for office and won, we salute your courage. And for those who also want to run, as in, really don't give up. It is difficult, but it is definitely possible.
Wow, it is difficult, but definitely possible. You know, when you said there is a mental culture, what do you call it?
A mental cultural block.
No, because actually, I know there was one of these young ladies I wanted to, I think it was the last election or 2 elections ago, and she said, fundraising, and the question is, why should I give you money to run for elections? I mean, why not go and build your family first, get married, have kids, settle down, you know, that idea, you go and settle down first. This politics you're coming for, I'd rather give you money for your wedding. That's give you what is, you know. But a young man can do the fundraising and they wouldn't be telling him, oh, go and settle down first. But then there's also the thing around the worry that if I give you this money, it may not be good investment, in the sense that they already believe you will not win. So why would I give? Because, you know, funding is like investment. Why should I give you money when I can give it to someone I know has a better chance of winning? So when you said that mental cultural block, I just said this is something we need to pick. How do you break through that mental cultural block to let people to view the females that present themselves on their competency first before the gender? Quincy, why?
So, Mr. Peter, you've run us through the different stages of elections and how money are being spent. I want to ask, why is election becoming increasingly expensive? And how can women and youth compete fairly in elections?
If you ask me, in Ghana, we think that the election phase I think I've spoken about 3 phases, but the election phase is too long. I'm told Nigeria, yours is 3 months. The election phase, I stand to be corrected.
Is 150 days campaign.
Uh-huh.
Because 150 days. That is how many months?
5.
5. That's close to 5.
5 months. Okay, but Ghana is unlimited.
Oh,
Yes, there's no time frame, so it increases the size of the budget because there's no time frame, and it puts a lot of pressure on women and girls, young girls, because once your opponent starts the game, you have to match him boot by boot, and it costs money to match him or her boot by boot. So we are saying that the time frame for the elections should be reduced to 3 months or possibly 6 weeks, as in the UK. Yeah, so that the expenditures will also come down. That's one area we have seen. Then we have also seen that the cost of elections also entails too much of transportation and fuel bills. You need a car, you need a motorbike for your assistant. So the access acquisition, we have to do away with that now that we have internet almost across the country, and now that social media has taken over. So your ability within your constituency to be able to set up a social media outreach program and the local radio network where you can go and speak and make adverts. Just the local community radio, which is very popular in Ghana. The local communities have their own radio aside the national one from Lagos or Abuja or Accra. So you go to the community radio, and they don't charge much. So what I'm saying, in effect, is that we should explore as many ways as possible to reduce campaign expenditure. Number one, we are saying that nomination fees should be cancelled, because if after all the person obtains a certain amount of votes, you will give the money back to him. Why are you collecting it? Why are you collecting it in the first place? But some will say if they don't collect it, everybody will come in and file nominations, and it will sort of, increase the number on the ballot sheet, on the ballot paper. So it's a way that the Electoral Commission is using to cut some numbers off and make the ballot paper quite appreciable. So that is one area, the nomination fees, both for internal primaries and for the general elections. Then there is also another cost of party paraphernalia. Party paraphernalia, t-shirts, hats, and all that, various items. And you go to a campaign, every supporter wants a t-shirt with your branded logo on it. And I think that one too costs a lot of money. And you need posters to post around the entire constituency. And if you are a presidential candidate, then throughout the length and breadth of the country. If it rains, the posters get spoiled and you have to replace them immediately. Sometimes people go on campaigns, then they come back to say, "Oh, we didn't see your posters. We didn't see much of your posters." They forget that the printer takes money before he will print your poster. So there are key areas that we have to look at. I have been a volunteer, an election volunteer in Sweden, Norway, UK. And where are the posters? There are no posters, very, very small ones. But they use the medium of television, internet to reach out to the voters. And for us in Ghana, because the Electoral Commission gives us the database of the register in hard copies to us, we are able to reach the voter directly. And we have said that one-on-one campaigning, canvassing, is the best form of campaign. So you must be able to train your people within the community, give them your message, so that in your absence, they can go house to house. After all, I don't know how much is on Nigeria's voters register, but in Ghana, every polling station has around 500 registered voters. It's not much to reach, to get your volunteers to reach 500 people within a polling station area. So we have to do a lot of training. One, on fundraising. Two, on laws governing elections, so that we don't fall foul of the law. And three, how to fundraise to help women and girls to do some fundraising. I may tell this forum that my daughter-in-law was a candidate in the last election. So I happen to know what she went through and how she was able to survive. But at the end of the day, she lost the election anyway.
Oh no, sorry. No, but I'm sure she will come back for the next elections.
Oh, she will come back.
Sometimes the first time is not always. The first time is an experience. You learn, you mobilize, then you go back and mobilize and plan to engage. But you've made very important point. Interestingly, our conversation around nomination, you can see this, the difference in context, because for theirs is the Electoral Commission that makes the demand. For ours is the parties that make the demands. And we're even calling on the parties to cut down this cost, because for the last elections, the cost for nomination was running in millions of naira for just to get the expression and nomination form before the primaries. And there's no refund. You contest in the primaries, you lose. All the monies are gone. But just thinking around this, I want us to talk a bit around Godfatherism, because I don't know if it's common in Ghana's politics, Mr. Peter, but in Nigeria, godfathers are powerful individuals. These are individuals who identify candidates to support. Ordinarily, that's how it should be. Identify candidates to support, you support them, and then they win a contest elections. But now we're seeing the overbearing influence of godfathers in our system, even on how it impacts leadership, because after you win, there's almost an expectation that your godfather, in quotes, is still in control. And so just wondering, I'll begin with Ibrahim if I get to Mr. Peter. What's your views around public or crowdfunding as an alternative to reduce that dependency on godfathers or a personal interest? And do you think that there's another alternative or an additional alternative, especially for newbies in politics, young women and young people?
Cynthia, I definitely think that crowdfunding or finding alternative sources of funding is also one way to regulate how much money determines political outcomes, and like you said, to reduce the influence of godfathers or godmothers in our political processes. I think in one of the earlier editions of this podcast, Risola spoke about aura for aura.
Yeah.
And Mr. Peter spoke about boot for boot. And you need the funding because you need to match your opponent naira for naira or CD for CDs. And that is the realistic nature of our politics, that money plays a part. But you had mentioned that when we have godfathers or mentors, like some people like to call them, the expectation is that if a godfather or a mentor kind of finances your campaign from beginning to end, he or she is going to dictate or determine what you do when you get into office. The flip side of this is that if you are able to raise money from a more diverse group of people, you know that your accountability is also spread and more people are able to hold you accountable. There are arguments that would sharpen other arguments to ensure that you don't have a single or a narrow-minded focus, or your loyalties lie with one individual. We also need to look at some legal reform around crowdfunding. I know there's a political party act in Ghana, for instance, that speaks about where you can receive money from. In our electoral act, we also have it that speaks about how much individuals can contribute, or how much organizations or institutions can contribute. But the question around that is also who is enforcing these laws. Are the parties also even aware of them? Many times I'm not sure that they are. But I definitely think that crowdfunding, alternative sources of raising money, is a great way for young people especially to get into office, make sure they have the resources to back them. And it also reduces, how much money influences political outcomes.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. Mr. Peter, what's your thoughts on this?
In Ghana, it's not so much pronounced by way of Godfatherism and mentors. What is really the case is that the two major parties raise money to fund some of the campaigns, especially the presidential candidates. The presidential candidates are able to raise money and support candidates. That is done. But ordinarily, Godfatherism is not pronounced in Ghana's politics the way it is in Nigeria. So for us, the party itself, the New Patriotic Party or the National Democratic Congress, for example, we pay the nomination fee to INEC or to Electoral Commission in bulk on behalf of all our candidates.
Okay.
Yeah. So when we are able to get the requisite 65% or so of the votes, we collect it back into the party. So normally, the presidential candidates have a good amount of network. So what you call Godfatherism, they will route their monies through the presidential candidates or the party's treasury or the party's fundraising. So the party itself buys a lot of things like T-shirts and other things and send it to candidates in their constituencies. That is normal. But that aside, candidates go on visits to chiefs to plead for votes, and they need money to buy drinks for the chiefs. But the chiefs are not godfathers as such. They, for the interest of peace, will receive candidates from all parties who will come to their kingdom.
Yeah.
So Godfatherism is something that is not pronounced in Ghana's politics the way it is in Nigeria. Nevertheless, individual candidates would solicit some form of financial assistance from people they know, including family, friends, classmates, people they work with, and stuff like that. So, but they cannot be called godfathers or mentors. They assist because of network and because of knowledge, because of relationship, and because of how they think that the particular candidate is their choice and they want to support him.
Oh, wow. Quincy, what do you think, Godfathers? Because to hear that it's not so prominent in Ghana's politics. In Nigeria's politics,
I mean, in Nigerian politics, Godfatherism has become something that most politicians rely on. And it's so bad because it has eaten deep into the system, because we see situations where they go into office, they tend to satisfy their godfathers in bringing policies that their godfathers have asked them to bring, and also in bringing up contracts that are not even making sense, just to refund the money that their godfathers have given them to contest for elections. And my view on crowd funding, I think is very important, and I buy the idea, because it enables low-income earners, especially the women and the youth, to participate fairly in elections.
Yeah, I also think it gives more power to the people a lot more. So, there's a sense of, I supported you, even if it is 100 naira, I supported you. When you get into office, I have a sense of, I have a right to ask you questions because you're in office. And perhaps that's something we need to start looking at, to equalize the power in the space. When you have different people contributing, as against when you have one person contributing. When you have different people contributing, one person can come and take ownership of you out of these different people. But when it's just one person that says, it's because of me that you got in, so you must do what I say, it just skews the whole conversation to that person controlling. And I really wish for a lot of women that get into the space, for younger people, that these considerations start coming in. Like how was it NSAS? There was a lot of crowdfunding, the protests, right?
Yes.
The fact that I think FEMCO, Feminist Coalition, they were also providing details on how they spent the money. That's what we need to start seeing. This young lady that we lost, sadly, Simi Olushola. Yes. She ran in the last elections for a state assembly in southwestern state, Ekiti State. Sadly, we lost her 2024, right? Because I was really hoping she would come back in next election. She was this close to winning. Things did not go pan out, but that was our first election. The level of accountability, I think, because I know she also leveraged some funding. She was giving out mails to give updates on what she was doing. After the election, she also gave an account, the money she received, what she had done with it, what was remaining, and all of those things. Now, that kind of culture would create a sense of ownership. So that when you even get into office, I did not come here on my own. I have people that supported me. So I'm really hoping that's the thing. But I feel like I'm preaching at this point. I want to get back to my guest. And I think it's a general question. And it's the fact that there's a growing concern that money politics is reducing competence, capacity, and character in office. And so if you have the money, if you have the resources, there's a better chance of you to win. There are people who have the knowledge, they have the competency and capacity. They are persons of integrity, but they don't have the resources. And so each time they get into that space, they are kicked out. And so this is I don't think there's a clear answer for this, but just to get your perspective, how can we introduce reforms? And maybe I'll begin with Ibrahim. How can we introduce reforms that regulate the role of money in politics in a way that we are creating better opportunities for younger people, for women, for persons with disability, for candidates that don't have money but have the competence to still compete and win elections? Is there a possibility that this can be done?
I think it's definitely possible. And Mr. Peter is just sharing some experiences from Ghana about how the party pays the costs of nomination forms, even though it's to the Electoral Commission. And while we're in Ghana in December, I know that the Ghanaian Electoral Commission said, they learned some things from Nigeria's election, which shocked many Nigerians. But,
I'm even shocked.
But the point for me is that what can Nigeria also learn from Ghana or from other countries that reduces the costs of running for elections for women, for young people, for people with disabilities as well, and just reducing the cost of nomination forms, which is a huge cost. If an average Nigerian, and I say average in quote, an average Ghanaian is not able to pay even the cost of nomination, it leads to some form of exclusion from that process. Even though you're competent, you have character, you have what it takes to hold that office, but there's that exclusion because of the cost, the monetary cost that comes with it. So how can we start to remove those costs or break those barriers or reduce it so that it opens up the space? We democratize the space a lot more so that many more people have access. Once this cost is high, it also fuels more corruption. And we've been speaking about it to say high cost of getting into office. You're trying to settle your godfather or whoever bankrolled your election. What that means is that any opportunity to enrich yourself using state resources in order to pay back this investment that your godfather has made is what you'd be focusing on, instead of providing services to the people or legislation if you're a member of parliament. So we need to find what are the lessons we can learn from Ghana, from other countries, from other jurisdictions that reduce the cost of money in politics so that those barriers to entry for women, for young people, for persons with disabilities are significantly lowered.
Yeah, before Quincy, I asked Mr. Peter a follow-up, I wanted to just ask you, would you support legislation that basically limits campaign finances and introduces a stronger penalty?
100%. And I think our legislation in Nigeria, especially in the Electoral Act, it has campaign finance limits. And there are debates about whether these limits are truly reflective, are realistic or not. But before we go there is even to ask, are we respecting those limits? Are political parties and candidates, submitting their campaign finance accounts to say, oh, this is how much I spent. It is within the limits of the law or not. There needs to be more enforcement either by the National Assembly or by the election management body to say, when you run for office, submit your accounts. Let us know whether you're spending more money than what the law stipulates or less. And we can use that as data and evidence, to kind of regulate it a bit more.
Okay, Mr. Peter, I want to ask, what reforms would you propose to create a level playing field for young women representation?
You see, having money cannot always win you an election.
True.
I think in Ghana, that has become clear. And CDD Ghana did a survey, and about 65% of the respondents said they will take your money, but when they get into the booth, it will not have any effect on them.
Wow.
And truly, when parties have money in abundance, they lose elections in Ghana. Yes, they lose elections because, you see, there is the sense that they want to know what you can do for them, not the money, the handouts or monies that you give them. So people are also the contestants are also becoming increasingly aware that spending too much money cannot necessarily win you an election.
That's good.
Cannot necessarily win you an election. I think it's something that Nigeria needs to get CDD or IAGA to do a survey on that. Yeah. Now, coming back to your question, you see, the campaign financing is also problematic in Ghana, especially as I have said earlier, that the campaign period is too long and there's the need to shorten the campaign period. One may also ask, what are the basis of the use of money? Ghana is a cash-based economy. So people deal with cash instead of electronics, transfer, or checks. So to be able to track whether people are on course, you can track bank transfers, you can track Momoh transfers, you can track electronic transfers. But cash transfers, or cash transactions
Yeah.
are difficult to track. And that is what many a time they use. So the economy must grow itself out of cash transactions, which is very critical for campaign. And then also, the Political Parties Act asks for financial reporting or disclosures from political parties. But barely do they show where the funds are coming from. So the individuals who pay those monies, we should be able to track them if they have used checks or any electronic payment, but rather they use cash. So we have to take ourselves out of the cash system to enable the economy chase and track how people pay monies to others. I think that is a very important aspect. But again, in New Patriotic Party, we also have what we call dues, where the dues are taken from people's mobile account. Okay, we have an agreement with the mobile operators, and our members subscribe that every month they will pay maybe 100 or 1,000 Ghana cedis or 100 Ghana cedis, but they use the medium of their credits on their mobile phones, and is deducted by the mobile company. And we have an arrangement with them, and they take certain percentage and pay us the remainder. That everybody can contribute as low as maybe 100 naira equivalent. So if you are talking about crowdfunding and all that, it's a system where members of the party. So what is important is to increase your membership drive and get more members on board who will sign up that they will pay $1 a month and is deducted through their mobile money or mobile credit account based on an agreement you have with the mobile operator. And they take their cut or their percentage and remit the remaining to the party. I think it's been very helpful. So we get a lot of funding from those kind of sources, and every member, wherever he is, has a small contribution to make, and they are proud of that. So it's something that we have to encourage. And mobile money transfers are not too much effective. We use that rather to send money to the candidates or the women candidates in the hinterland, which is difficult to go, but they have access to mobile telephony, and therefore they have access to mobile money. I think that is also another means of transferring money and them receiving money, and that can be tracked. Because in Ghana, the law also says that at the end of every election, political parties must submit a statement of account of payments they have received and payments they have done outside, expenditure. So if you don't do that, you fall foul of the law and your party can be disbanded. Or you will see your party's name as a banner story on the newspaper that you haven't submitted your accounts, which is degrading. So those are some of the things. So I think that we should encourage electronic payments. We should encourage the use of checks, and we should move out from the cash economy so that we can track various transactions that go on in the political circles, and that will make the cost of running come down. And once people begin to understand that you pay him money, you pay her money, But when he gets into the booth, he can shorten you. Then we have to sit up as politicians.
Wow. Thank you. I love this. I found it quite impressive that there's a lot, it seems there's a better compliance with parties to even submit their financial records, because it said your name could be on a newspaper and that would be embarrassing. Now that's the level of sanity we need to get to in Nigeria. I think at this point, because we have these rules, we don't have this level of compliance or this sense of accountability by parties to even submit their finances or their records to the Electoral Commission. And we don't even make noise around it. This should also be another issue to actually advocate on. We want parties to become a lot more accountable, because if you can't be accountable, why should we trust you in leadership? But what is that call to action, right? And I'll begin with Ibrahim. What's your call to action when it comes to the money game and how it affects women's political representation? What will be your call to action?
Wow, this is a tough call to action because there are so many stakeholders involved in the process. For one, especially to political parties, is stop seeing candidates as generating revenue on behalf of the party for you. And we just heard about how in Ghana, members pay their dues.
Yes.
How can you enforce payment of dues so that you reduce this cost? And if members pay dues every month, a small amount every month, the party has enough in its account to actually even support the candidates rather than requesting huge nomination fees for them. For the media as well, I think the political season for them is Christmas, where they make so much money and you can charge ridiculously for airtime. But how can we ensure that there's a level playing field for young women, for persons with disabilities, for men, for everyone? And it reduces the cost of money in politics. The media is always going to be with us. They would always make money. But once you just see that political season as an opportunity, like we say, to cash out, there's a problem. And then my final call to action is to citizens. There's that socio-cultural or behavioral change that we need to start to imbibe. There are competent women all across this country, across this sub-region, across this continent, who, if they are in leadership position, are going to transform our system so much. We need to not give them this opportunity. They will run and they will win, whether we like it or not. Let's not say we're giving them, because it's not on a platter of gold. But the time will come. So better accept it now, because it is going to come later.
Thank you. Better come to the point of acceptance now, because women political representation is here to stay. Mr. Peter, what's your call to action?
Two things. First, women and girls candidates must have some training on fundraising. I think they are new on all aspects of fundraising, and then which will entail also how to run a campaign, because the budget will have to depend on the various activities that you have to undertake from pre-election, election to post-election. And they should not be afraid of contacting as many people as possible. They should start from their own family to their own schoolmates and classmates, to their own business circles, to their own town and village folks. And in Ghana, we say nothing is too small. Or like Oliver's twist, you will always ask for more.
Ask for more.
Yes, because the terrain, the campaign terrain keeps changing as we are discussing. But I think that all in all, we have gone through various programs of state funding for political parties, as is done in Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania. Whether we can introduce that in Africa, and that will in West Africa, and that will depend on the number of votes that you obtain that will qualify you for post-election reimbursement. So if the state sees that we need to promote our democracy and that there is inequality in funding, then the state must fund political parties for campaigns. And those who are able to amass certain number of votes or percentage are paid back to the political party funding system. It's not everybody with a portfolio as a political party that can go and access the fund. No, it should be a post-election performance based, and that will reflect whether you qualify for 5% reimbursement or 10%. I think it's something that they developed, some developed democracies offer, and Kenya does it, Tanzania does it, Uganda I think also does it. So that can help bring our women and girls into the campaign trail without so much burden on where they are going to find the money. We also think that that will also give equal opportunities for both men, women, and girls. And for me, I also endorse the idea that we should get more women and girls into our political landscape. But money has been an inhibiting factor, and we must do our best to fund our girls and our women in the political space to enable them grow. And for them to grow, then it means our democracy is also growing.
Wow. Thank you. Quincy, why do you have any call to action?
Well, they've said everything, but I just want to add to what they've said. Our political parties should have like a transparent internal democracy, if there's anything like that, where party candidates are being selected on merit, not on Godfatherism or anything like that. And so, because it will also help young women and youth to participate fairly in electoral process.
Yes, I mean, internal party democracy is key, because at least if there is a system of internal democracy, it also makes it easier for other candidates to have a fair chance at the party primaries, at part of candidate nomination. You know, when we started, I said money makes the world go round, and we always say good soup na money killer in our pidgin. I think Mr. Peter, do you have that saying too in Ghana? Good soup na money killer.
Oh, we keep saying that too much meat in the soup will not spoil it.
That, and I think I like that one. Too much meat in the soup will not spoil. You know that kind of soup you cook that the spoon is fighting with the meat.
Yes.
As you want to stir, the meat is pushing the spoon is pushing the meat. I like that kind of soup. So I mean, that's the kind of soup we want to be cooking. A democracy that is prosperous and rich and vibrant and has representation of everyone, and so representation of women. Because if it's just only men, then it's no longer democracy in a sense, because it's no longer people participation, it's just men participation. And so for us, we want to be cooking the soup that has everyone in it, that rich, prosperous, delicious soup. That's what will make our system work for us. And that is our call to everyone watching and listening, that our system needs a lot more support for women, for young women to contest and win elections, and that we need to look for how to start raising funds to also support those who are interested in running for office. There's nothing that starts off, even if it's 1,000 naira or in the city equivalent or in whatever currency it is, nothing is too small. That way we can build solidarity and build a movement around candidates that we think are competent, and we can influence the kind of leadership we deserve as Africans. It's been an interesting conversation so far. Thank you so much, Ibrahim Farouk, for being one of our guests today. It's good to have you back on the Unamplified podcast.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Peter Mbamalu, joining all the way from Accra, Ghana. It's so good to have you on this episode, sir.
It's been a very, very, very productive engagement for me this afternoon. And it has always been my wish and the wish of my party that we encourage men, women, and young girls to actively participate in our democracy.
Yes, thank you. And it's nice to hear that. To our audience and our listeners, don't forget to like, subscribe to our channels, drop a comment for us. We want to know what you think, and follow us on all our social media platforms, on Spotify at the Unamplified Podcast, and also on Instagram, TikTok, Threads, Facebook, and X, where you can also find us at the Unamplified Podcast. I'll hand it over to Quincy White to appreciate our crew behind the scene.
I would like to appreciate our crew behind the scene, the Unamplified team. Thank you for always being with us. And to our audience, thank you for sticking with us always. I think that's it for this episode of the Unamplified Podcast.
Yes, and normally we end with a chant. We say, when you're on, Mr. Peter, you will join us virtually. Yes. When you're on,
you're amplified.
Cheers
to
Africa.
Cheers.